The auction hall shimmered with imperial opulence, carved from pearlescent stone mined from the crushed moons of Subron Delta. Rows of alien nobles lounged like bloated serpents across crystalline benches, their appendages coiled or hovering, sipping liquefied stars and discussing the finer points of owning rare, sentient species. On the platform beneath the pale blue spotlight stood two humans. The girl, around 19, had a face like still water, neither frightened nor angry, just unervingly calm. Her dark hair was pulled back, and she wore the standard-issue linen garment given to all organic lots. Her mother stood beside her, early 40s, with faint scars around her temple and fingers that tapped silently against her thigh, like she was counting something only she understood. "Lot number 12, announced the auctioneer, his voice a blend of oily confidence and predatory glee. He was a glut-hari, a species of feathered serpents that blinked sideways and smiled with too many teeth. A rare pairing, one adult female and her adolescent daughter. Fully functional, minimal trauma, no visible mutations. There was a hum of interest. A Trashian noble adjusted his breathing halo and leaned forward. Were they bred in captivity? No, the auctioneer beamed. These are genuine Terrans, unspoiled by domestication. Captured during a failed diplomatic transport. Pristine. A murmur passed through the room. From the back of the gallery, Ambassador Harlan West took a sip from a cheap plastic water bottle. Earth standard. He wore a dark blazer over a wrinkled collared shirt. No insignia, no weapons. Just a calm man with polite eyes. He leaned to a security drone floating beside him and whispered, "Start the timer." The drone beeped once. Meanwhile, the auction continued. A merchant from the JovTech Combine opened the bid with 3 crates of cobalt embryos. A zither spice baron countered with a hybrid war beast and an unclaimed moon. "This one," the girl said softly, her voice barely above a breath. "He bleeds if you say the right word." Her mother looked over. "Which word?" The girl's lips barely moved. "Gargoyle." The Trashian noble tilted his head, hearing nothing. But suddenly a stream of fluid dribbled from his ear. He wiped it confused. His gaze swept back to the girl, who simply blinked once. On the upper terrace, Ambassador West chuckled quietly and took another sip. The auctioneer laughed. Terran juveniles often attempt to appear menacing. It's primitive mimicry, no real threat, just showmanship. "I thought they were extinct," muttered a now-carry scientist, who had dissected 3 humans before breakfast. "Didn't Earth sign surrender protocols?" "Oh, they did," replied the auctioneer. "Signed and sealed. But they're slow learners. Still think they're important." The girl turned slightly and looked up, meeting Harlan's gaze across the hall. No smile, no signal, just acknowledgement. Harlan gave her the smallest nod. Below, the bidding intensified. "I offer my brother's soul," a masked diplomat said casually. "He's useless, but still technically alive." The room buzzed with laughter. Suddenly, the mother sneezed. It was sharp, clean, nothing dramatic. But for exactly 0.3 seconds, every translator in the auction house glitched. One screen flickered, another reset to Earth standard clock. A single chandelier dimmed before returning to full glow. Ambassador West, still watching, murmured, "Bless you." The auctioneer cleared his throat. "As you can see, the specimens are in full health. Their vitals have remained steady throughout, with no evidence of emotional degradation, unusual for Terrans, who are known to be volatile." The girl tilted her head. "We're not volatile," she said, still calm. "We're practiced." That phrase registered on precisely one interface. A buried system 3 layers beneath the central auction hall. Somewhere in the fusion matrix, an Earth protocol flag blinked yellow. A Tsar noble in gold-plated armor raised 3 claws. "I will outbid the rest with 7 slaves of my own, trained psionics, and a fortress on Grix 9. "That bid is acknowledged," the auctioneer grinned. The girl leaned toward her mother and whispered, "Should I start crying? Or would that be too much?" The mother's reply was barely audible. "No. Let them underestimate you longer. That's the point." On the top level, a junior diplomat leaned toward Harlan. "Sir, this is outside the negotiated terms." We weren't supposed to intervene. Harlan didn't look at him. We're not intervening. But your expression, it's satisfied. Oh, Harlan replied, tapping his bottle cap. I just like a good auction. Below, one of the bidders began foaming at the mouth. A screen near the girl flashed briefly. Text that no one else seemed to see. Echo request received. Neural handshake initiated. The girl breathed in, slowly. The air shimmered around her, not visibly, but as if space itself leaned closer. The auctioneer hesitated, looking at his panel. We appear to be experiencing minor interference. We, shall continue. The next bid. Then the lights dimmed again, just a fraction too long. The mother spoke clearly for the first time. You should have read the treaty fine print. A pause. The auctioneer stared at her. Pardon. She tilted her head toward the crowd. Clause 12b. Civilian detainment during treaty period. Several aliens turned to look at each other. In the back, the junior diplomat blinked. What's Clause 12b? Ambassador West screwed his bottle cap closed. Any harm, physical, psychological, or attempted sale, of civilian Terran citizens during diplomatic transportation. He stood, brushing his jacket. Constitutes declaration of war. A long silence followed. You can't be serious, the auctioneer scoffed. I'm not, Harlan replied mildly. She is. Every monitor in the room blinked. One after another, their feeds were overridden. The screens showed Earth, satellites, oceans, cities, and beneath them, numbers. Long strings of military encryption. Then came the voice. Not loud, not shouting, but Earth standard neutral female, clear and crisp. Confirmation of hostile acquisition of Terran nationals. Retaliation sequence active. Begin planetary compliance scan. The girl stepped forward. I didn't want this. The alien stared. She looked up again, her expression finally changing, just slightly. Her eyes narrowed. But you made it necessary. In the ceiling, several drones uncloaked. The first bidder vanished. One moment, a Juvtech lord. The next, a fine layer of pink ash drifting to the floor. Alien screamed. The mother reached for her daughter's hand. Let it happen. I am, the girl whispered. On the back wall, behind Ambassador West, a large screen blinked red. T-minus 3 hours until full retaliatory protocol. West turned to leave. The junior diplomat looked pale. We're not staying? He smiled faintly. Why would we? The bidding's done. As chaos began to ripple through the room, the girl and her mother remained standing in the spotlight, untouched. Lot number 12, still unclaimed, but no longer unarmed. The bids rose like a fever, more frantic now, less performative, as if each bidder felt, somewhere beneath their scales or steel plating or photosensitive membranes, that this auction wasn't going to end the way the last 1,000 had. The Trashian noble returned with a counteroffer, a private asteroid field and access to a wormhole corridor. The auctioneer purred, visibly delighted by the escalating desperation. My esteemed clients, he sang. You see before you not only the last known intact Terran pairing, but a mother-daughter bond preserved across capture, interrogation, and isolation. Imagine the research potential, the aesthetic symmetry, the raw, undiluted history. The daughter tilted her head, slowly scanning the room. Her eyes held no fear, just focus. Calculation. The kind that didn't belong on someone barely 19. The mother whispered again, her voice a slow drip of iron. They're not bidding for us. They're bidding for a trap they've already sprung. You think they'll figure that out before it's too late? The daughter asked softly. The mother didn't blink. No. On the far side of the chamber, a hulking Verg overlord raised 2 trunk-like arms. I offer 8,000 bio-units and my breeding rights for 3 rotations. I also include tactical rights to my sector on the western rim. The auctioneer's feathers shimmered with greed. Accepted. Any counter? From the upper tier, Harlan West leaned against the railing, arms crossed loosely. He was smiling, not the smile of victory, more the kind you'd wear at a high school reunion while waiting for the punchline. Sir, the junior aide beside him hissed. They're going to kill each other over the bidding. Harlan didn't look away from the platform. Hopefully not too quickly. Beneath the dais, the floor hummed. The girl looked down. The mother followed her gaze. Subsurface vibrations, low frequency, but unmistakable. The hum of Earth-based fusion tech buried under alien marble. The girl said aloud, "You put it here?" "I left pieces," the mother replied, nodding faintly. "Just enough for the AI to rebuild what mattered." An alien on the third row convulsed. He had been silent the whole time, one of the Drexy aristocrats, known for speechless telepathic observation. His eyes rolled, his mandibles chittered. Then he slumped, unconscious. The auctioneer paused. "He is simply overwhelmed. Terrans can emit pheromonal disruptions when agitated." "Fascinating." The daughter raised an eyebrow. "We haven't moved." From the ceiling, small black orbs blinked to life, observers, supposedly security. But their inner rings had shifted from green to red. "Scan protocols have been overridden," a robotic voice announced from the chamber's AI. "Auction priority has been escalated to Incident Tier 7. Cross-species contamination risk, 41%. Several nobles rose. "What contamination? They're just humans. They're unarmed. They're smiling." That last line, whispered by a Zarn geneticist, hung too long in the air. Ambassador West set his water bottle down on the railing. The cap clicked against metal. "Remember when we gave them the declaration," he said aloud, mostly to himself. "Told them exactly what would happen if they touched our civilians?" The aide looked at him. "But they didn't believe us." "No," Harlan said softly. "They believed we couldn't afford to make an example." "And can we?" Harlan's lips twitched. "Oh, we're not making an example. We're making a precedent." Back on the platform, the auctioneer hesitated, then forced a grin. "My clients, perhaps a brief intermission." "Denied," the AI intoned. "Override." "I command." "Command code invalid." "New command recognized, Origin EX." The daughter looked up at the ceiling. A click. Then a series of subtle shifts across the chamber as parts of the walls detached and unfolded. Nothing fast. Nothing violent. Just methodical reconfiguration. Behind the platform, one wall rotated. Out of it stepped a humanoid figure, sleek, chrome, matte black. No insignia. Human in shape. Eyes glowing amber. The crowd gasped. "Who activated combat protocol?" the auctioneer shrieked. "I did," said the girl. She was still calm. Still. "Because your empire made the mistake of bidding." The robot stepped forward. "Unit 9A. Covert observation." "Hello, Julia." The daughter nodded. "Hello, 9." The mother turned to face the crowd. "We were never the product. You were. This entire event has been monitored, recorded, and transmitted." "To whom?" someone cried. "To everyone," Julia said simply. Another noble screamed, tearing off his communicator. "Shut down the feeds." Ambassador West tapped his own ear. "Galactic broadcast is on a 30-second delay. But don't worry, they're catching up." On the lower floor, panic began to ripple. Not physical yet, but in posture, in tone, in breath. Aliens stopped bidding. They started running numbers, calculating escape routes. None found any. The mother raised her hand. From the sidewall, a door hissed open. A second Terran emerged. Young man, hair in a buzz cut, casual clothes, holding a book with a cover facing inward. He didn't speak. He simply walked to Julia and handed her the book. She opened it. Inside, a hollow image blinked to life. Human children in a meadow, laughing. A Zither aristocrat choked. "What is this? Why show that?" "It's the reason," the mother replied. "For what?" "For what's coming." A warning siren pierced the air. The auction chamber, designed to impress and intimidate, now seemed suddenly too small. A voice boomed through the walls. Male, deep, Terran standard. "This is the United Terran Diplomatic Response Force. You are in violation of Article 12B of the Preservation Treaty. You have attempted to trade protected civilians. We consider this an act of war." Gasps. Movement. A noble drew a blaster. A robot disarmed him before it cleared the holster. Harlan West began walking toward the elevator platform that led down. The junior aide followed, breath quick. Where are you going? To welcome our extraction team. And to give the alien council one final chance to lie. Lie. To pretend they didn't know. To look surprised. He smiled faintly. We give them that much. It's polite. Back on the stage, Julia closed the book and looked out over the crowd. We asked for peace. You bid for bodies. You shouldn't have confused the two. From the sky above the auction house, the first shadow fell. An Earth ship in high orbit. Not large, just sharp. Triangular. Clean edges, no adornment. It hovered unmoving. The signal was clear. Inside the auction room, silence fell. Julia finally smiled. Just slightly. They always say the mistake was underestimating us, she said. But really? She looked around at the stunned, trembling elite of the galaxy. The mistake was thinking you had anything to offer. And then the room locked. Every door, every window. One final bid had been made, and humanity had accepted it. The air changed. It wasn't the temperature or pressure. Those remained carefully regulated inside the galactic auction core. But something subtler, denser. A tension that settled in the lungs of every being present. A tightening behind the eyes. Alien instincts, ancient and long buried beneath genetics and wealth, stirred with a single shared thought. Something is watching us now. Julia stood motionless, her fingers interlaced before her as the ship above cast its silent shadow. Her calmness was no longer passive. It had shifted into something declarative, intentional. She wasn't enduring. She was waiting. The auctioneer, feathers visibly fraying, wiped sweat from his eye stalks. Ladies and sentients of the realm, he stammered, this is a minor diplomatic breach, nothing more. Please return to your seats. The chamber lights dimmed again. Not a flicker this time. A soft and deliberate fade. Warning, the building AI announced. Unauthorized override signal detected. Source, Human Vessel Designation Policy Clarification. A soft chime rang out. Then a new voice, warm and measured female, with the crisp cadence of a mid-level Earth bureaucrat. Hello. This is Section 42 of the United Terran Interstellar Accord Compliance Division. You have violated Article 12B. Please remain calm. Your transaction has been recorded and submitted for audit. Half the crowd froze. The other half panicked. A handful of alien delegates tried to teleport. Their devices fizzled, short-circuited, mid-flash. One noble from the Vark Tuun syndicate attempted to vaporize himself for diplomatic immunity. His vapor cloud was promptly contained in a stasis orb. I didn't think you'd actually use it, the junior aide muttered to Harlan as they rode the elevator down. That clause. I thought it was just there for leverage. It was, Harlan said, checking his watch. Until someone forgot to read the footnotes. As the lift doors opened, they stepped into the lower auction corridors. Marble tiles met matte black alloys. At the far end of the hall stood Julia and her mother, now flanked by three humanoid figures, each dressed in Terran envoy black, their lapels gleaming with the chrome sigil of Earth's compliance core, a stylized gavel breaking a planet in half. The mother glanced over her shoulder at Harlan. Took you long enough. Had to let the arrogance cook through, he replied, walking toward them. They needed to believe it was still their house. I think the house is on fire, Julia murmured. The wall behind them groaned and opened. Not a door, an access port sealed long ago. A low mist rolled from it. Inside, dozens of pods lined the walls, Terran designed, auto-folding stasis capsules shaped like caskets. None open, all humming. I thought those were decommissioned, the aide whispered. They were, Harlan said. This is a classified model, untraceable, self-deploying, planted during the last trade summit. The aide swallowed. So they've been sleeping here the whole time? Not sleeping, the mother corrected. Listening. Meanwhile, in the auction hall above, alien leaders tried to form coalitions, call in ships, negotiate escape. But the building no longer answered to them. Their calls were routed. Their ships were grounded. The voice returned, cheerful, crisp. Please note that this facility has been reclassified under the Human Expansion Emergency Asset Repossession Act. You are currently trespassing on Terran diplomatic property. Evacuation is no longer authorized. A Zarn diplomat screamed and fired a pulse weapon at the ceiling. It bounced harmlessly. The ceiling absorbed the blast like a mother absorbing a tantrum. "Let me guess," the mother said, stepping into the hall proper. "You want to explain the clause?" Harlan nodded and raised his voice for the room's remaining conscious occupants. "By the authority of a United Terran Accord, I formally cite Clause 12b, subsection 4, paragraph 7. He let hang in the air, then smiled. "In layman's terms, if you auction one of us, we auction everything back." Gasps. Scrambling. One alien tried to draw up trade immunity contracts, shouting about diplomatic exceptions and arbitration councils. Julia walked past him like he was mist. Her eyes flicked to the camera drones embedded in the walls. "You don't really understand what Earth became," she said, almost kindly. "You only saw our documentaries, our food exports, our music." She stopped at the center of a stage, directly beneath the spotlight. "You thought you were buying primitives." And what they bought, the mother added, now beside her, was the world's most adaptive species. Raised in conflict, trained by failure, forged in consequence. "We warned you," Julia finished. Another alien dropped. Not from any visible strike. Just gone. His data signature erased. The Terran agents moved through the crowd, not killing, but confiscating. Stripping systems of data. Disabling weapons. Recording reactions. A Drexy noble screamed, "You can't just take everything." "We're human," Harlan said. "That's literally our thing." An alien scientist hissed, "You don't need to destroy the Empire for this." For a girl and her breeder. Julia didn't move. "She's not my breeder. She's my mother. And for your empire to fall because of her." She smiled at last. "That's not destruction. That's value." A new sound rolled through the chamber. Not a siren, not a weapon. A chime. Gentle. Familiar. It was Earth's emergency broadcast tone. The screens flickered. Every known planetary system linked to the Empire lit up with a single repeating image. The auction scene, live, paired with text in Galactic Common. "Treaty violation. Human retaliation protocol. Please stand by." The audience across the stars saw their most powerful, most smug leaders reduced to scrambling children. They saw Julia standing beneath a spotlight. And they saw the ship above, not firing, not yet, but waiting, watching. The final bid was silence. In the auction's central archive node, a last failsafe blinked to life. The auctioneer, still twitching in the corner, whimpered, "What happens now?" Julia walked toward him. Her shadow stretched across the stage. "Now." She knelt. Her voice was soft, sympathetic, terrifying. "Now we enforce the terms and conditions." And the light went out. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the kind that sat heavy on the chest, pressed into the ears, and made creatures with ancient instincts forget how to breathe. The Galactic Auction Corps, once echoing with arrogant voices and diplomatic deceit, now throbbed with something colder, consequence. Ambassador Harlan West walked through the crowd with the casual rhythm of a man inspecting groceries. His suit, still wrinkled, seemed to mock the grandeur around him. He paused near the fallen Zither noble, stooped, and plucked a golden sigil from the creature's trembling hand. "You know," he said mildly, "this really is good craftsmanship. Shame it'll melt." The noble whimpered. Harlan dropped the emblem and continued, stepping over scorched silk and smoldering feathers. Above the chamber, the Earthship policy clarification hovered without moving. It didn't need to fire. It had already won. Inside it, thousands of eyes watched, recorded, calculated. Not for vengeance, for pattern recognition. Back in the auction room, Julia adjusted the cuffs of her gray jumpsuit. Her hands no longer trembled. The crowd had finally begun to understand. This wasn't about rescue. This was a case study. Her stillness had always been camouflage. Her silence was not fear. It was focus. The mother stood beside her, arms crossed, her gaze sweeping the room like she was measuring for a renovation. "What's the tally?" she asked softly. 47 confirmed violations," said one of the agents beside them. flicking through a projection of charges. 3 attempts at neural override. 12 escaped into containment corridors. All tracked. "Let one go," she murmured. The agent blinked. "Why?" "Because myths grow faster than warnings." The mother turned, glancing up at the ceiling, where drones continued their lazy orbit. "Tell me the signal went out." "It did," Harlan answered, arriving beside her. 612 systems are now aware of what happens when humans are labeled merchandise. "Good." Her voice held steel. "We told them. In treaties. In polite briefings. In legal language." "They never read the manual," Julia said. The floor beneath them trembled slightly. All eyes turned skyward. It wasn't the Terran ship that moved. It was the space around it. One by one, stars blinked out. Not from destruction, but from interference. A new vessel emerged, if it could be called that. It didn't shimmer or burn. It unfolded like geometry losing patience. No sound. No engines. Just arrival. Harlan smiled, the way a wolf might smile at the discovery of an open fence. "Is that," the aide began. "Earth's legal enforcement cruiser," he said. "The footnote." Julia exhaled slowly. "We sent that." "It reads the entire treaty out loud before taking action," Harlan said. At full volume. The alien nobles began to panic again. Some screamed. Some dropped to their knees. The Drexy Chancellor tore at his own chest as a projected screen emerged in the air, scrolling clauses faster than the eye could follow. Section 6. Violation of transgalactic rights by commercial auction. Section 9. Failure to ensure non-interference of civilian travel. Section 12b. Sale of Terran citizens during diplomatic transit. The voice continued, unhurried. Julia turned to her mother. "You once said humans were designed by suffering, that we evolved faster because the universe hated us first." Her mother nodded. "It taught us how to be quiet, until the world stopped laughing." And now, no one in the chamber was laughing. They had tried to buy a girl, and bought, instead, the final test of their own laws. A siren blared. The floor split. Not from attack, but from audit. 50 alien delegates were hoisted upward by invisible force. Stasis beams locked the midair. Each delegate froze in a separate light prism. A booming voice from the ship above declared, "Crimes acknowledged. Responses initiated. Fines applicable. One empire." Harlan walked beneath the floating bodies and tipped his head back. "Next time, read the terms." "But this is insanity," one ambassador croaked. "You're wiping out centuries of structure over 2 civilians." Julia stepped forward. "No," she said gently. "We're just enforcing your policy on lost assets." Her mother touched her arm. "It's done." Not quite. Because across the galaxy, planets that once flew imperial banners began shutting down. Trade nodes went dark. Defense grids rekeyed themselves. Terran sleeper algorithms, placed decades earlier in innocent trade hubs and forgotten comm relays, awakened. They didn't explode. They didn't destroy. They simply revoked access. Power gone. Maps deleted. Economies erased with an asterisk. One alien near the back whimpered, "Why didn't we see this coming?" "You did," Harlan said, crouching beside him. "But you thought we'd need your permission to fight back." He stood. "You assumed diplomacy meant we were weak." He turned to the crowd. "But diplomacy was our last offer. This." He gestured to the chamber. The frozen elites, the vanished stars, the ship that spoke law like scripture. "Is the receipt." A soft chime ended the announcement. The screen showed one last phrase in bold galactic text. "Action completed. This empire has been repossessed by humanity." The room dimmed, and one by one, the lights went out. Not from failure, from closure.